Hi guys, Sean here from digiDirect. Today we're taking a first look at the brand new, just announced Canon EOS R full-frame mirrorless camera. At the time of this recording, this was just announced less than 24 hours ago. How to play with it now. People have been waiting for this for quite a while, and Canon's delivered it with a new RF lens mount, a slew of new lenses, over 5,000 autofocus points, adapters to put your EF lenses on here as well, and more. So without any further ado, let's jump right into it and take a look at the camera. So of course, being a mirrorless camera, this is smaller and lighter than Canon's full-frame DSLRs, but it is still very sturdy feeling. It doesn't feel cheap by any means. It feels very, very solid. It's a very nice build quality on the camera. It has a fully articulating LCD touchscreen, which is fantastic. So you can flip it all the way around. There's not a lot of full-frame cameras that have a fully articulating screen, so that's really nice. And notably, the Nikon Z7 and Z6, their full-frame mirrorless that have just been announced as well, only has a tilting LCD screen. So this has got a bit of an advantage over those ones. The screen does also enable touch and swipe AF while you're shooting through the viewfinder, so you can use your thumb to adjust the focus point while you're looking through the EVF. Speaking of that EVF, it is a very high resolution 3.6 million dot viewfinder, so it's very sharp, very, very easy to shoot with. There's basically no lag. It's got some nice information overlays. Obviously, being not an optical viewfinder, we can put some more information over top of it, and Canon's taken advantage of that. It even actually, when you turn the camera vertically to shoot a portrait style shot, the information overlays even twist and go vertically as well, which is a nice touch. We've got this new touch bar, which is the first time we've seen this on any camera. It doesn't actually depress, it's not a button, but it reacts to your touch. You can use it to press on the left or right hand button or do a swipe across to scroll through options. It's fully customizable, so you can change it to be whatever you want. You can use it to swipe between autofocus modes or be a scroll wheel for ISO or whatever you want. It actually works pretty well. And it also does lock so that your thumb doesn't accidentally touch it and change settings, because it's kind of naturally where your thumb rests, so that's nice. Of course, we have more customizable function buttons across the body, although not quite as many as you might see on a regular Canon DSLR, because the lenses all have this new control dial on here, which is an additional control thing. We can change aperture, ISO, exposure compensation, shutter speed with that. We'll touch on that a little bit more later. But there also are two standard dials on here as well. There's a top LCD screen, which is going to show you your basic information. It's also going to be where you're going to access and change your modes. You can also press the button here to show a bit more information, or even hold this to reverse the colors if you like. Now, there is only one card slot on this camera. I know some people are going to have a bit of an issue with that. That's similar to what the Nikon Z6 and Z7 have. Although on this one, it is an SD card slot, not an XQD like on the Nikon cameras. It is a UHS 1 and UHS 2 compatible card slot. On the other side, we've got a mic and headphone jack, USB, HDMI, and an accessory port. This is a fully weather-sealed camera, as are most of the lenses that have been announced with the camera, and even the adapters that will let you put EF mount lenses on here. Those are also weather-sealed. Nice little feature here, when the power is turned off, this little shutter thing covers the sensor. So if you're changing lenses, you've got the sensor exposed, this is going to cover that sensor to avoid you getting dust and so on onto the sensor itself. The battery inside here is an LPE6N, so same battery as you've seen on your 5D Mark IVs and so on, so you can use your existing batteries if you're changing from a different a Canon DSLR system. There is also a battery grip that you can get, and the camera does have USB charging via USB-C, although you need a powered USB power adapter to use that. Not every single USB adapter is going to let you do that. Canon is going to be making their own version of that, but you can also get them separately and independently. Inside the camera is a 30 megapixel full frame sensor. It's a nice medium resolution level. It's not like a 45 megapixel sensor like on a Sony a7 III or the new Nikon Z7. But to be honest, only select photographers really need that much resolution. 30 megapixels is still quite a lot. So for most people, that'll be plenty, lots of room to crop in on your photos, blow them up quite large, but not so big that the file sizes are going to be really, really large. So I think it strikes a nice medium balance in terms of sensor resolution. And one of the more exciting things about this camera is that it comes with an entirely brand new lens mount. Canon is calling it their RF lens mount. This is totally different than their EOS M mount for their crop sensor mirrorless cameras. You won't be able to put those lenses on here. It is, of course, different than the EF or EFS mount from their existing DSLR lineup. So totally new. Apparently Canon is saying that's going to have better, more controlled light fall off to the edges, so you're going to have better brightness all the way to the edges of the frame. It also has more data connection points between the lens and the body. It's got 12 as opposed to 8 on their EF mount lens. So they're saying that that's going to allow for better connection and response between the lens and the body. But of course, it does mean we've got brand new lenses. So they've also announced 4 native RF series lenses. We've got a 35mm 1.8 STM, we've got a 50mm 1.2L, a 24-105 f4L, and a 28-70 f2L. That last one is definitely kind of the showpiece lens, being a zoom lens that has a faster aperture than f2.8. That's very interesting. And they've actually said to me that the quality of these lenses is quite high, and particularly the 28-70 at f2, it's as sharp as their existing 24-70 2.8 is at 2.8. So if you stop it down to f2.8, it should be even sharper than the 24-70 at 2.8. So that's quite impressive. That's a feat. Also, the 50mm 1.2 is supposedly one of the sharpest lenses they've ever made. I was kind of borderline told maybe the sharpest, but can't officially say so, but a very, very sharp lens as well. That's the one I've got on here right now, and most of the samples that you're seeing here I shot with this lens. So some very impressive specs on the lenses, some exciting stuff there, absolutely. Now, one thing worth mentioning is that the 35mm and the 24-105 are image stabilized lenses. The 28-70 and the 50 are not. The camera itself does not have in-body image stabilization, which I know is going to disappoint some people. So you're going to be using lens stabilization, not the in-body. If you have a range of existing EF or EFS lenses, you can still put them on here using an adapter. Now, you'll notice that I am saying EFS here as well, so you can take a crop sensor lens with the adapter, put it on this camera. It will shoot in crop mode when you're doing that, but you can do it. Now, those adapters, there's actually 3 of them. The first one is a standard adapter. We'll just let you take the EF or EFS lens, put it on here. The second one has the control ring that I mentioned that the native RF lenses have. That control ring is put on that adapter, so if you like that feature, you can have that with your existing EF lenses. And the final adapter has actually a drop-in filter, so you can have a variable ND or circular polarizer that you can drop into the filter set there as well. All these adapters are weather sealed. And this is not an empirical statement, but when testing some EF lenses with the adapters, I didn't really notice any lag in autofocus speed. The AF still seemed quite fast and responsive. Speaking of autofocus, that's another big feature of this camera. It has 5,655 autofocus points. They cover 100% of the frame vertically and 88% of the frame horizontally. It's a huge number. That's about 10 times more than its closest competitor. Now, number of AF points doesn't necessarily mean quality, but this is a very, very fast autofocusing camera. So it can focus at up to 0.05 seconds, which makes Canon was a bit hesitant to claim this, but it does make that pretty much the fastest autofocusing camera in the world right now with those specs. In practice, I found it to be extremely responsive. It was really fast to swap between subjects, tracking subjects. Really, really impressed with the autofocus on this camera. I think a lot of people are going to like it. It is also Canon's excellent dual pixel autofocus system. It's been around for a couple of years now. It's very tried and true. It's very good for shooting in live view, tracking subjects, facial detection, shooting video. So really good to see that on there. Just a very, very robust autofocusing system on this camera. I was quite impressed. It also can autofocus at up to -6 EV. So low light autofocus is more accurate than most cameras, which can typically these days only go to -4 EV. So some extra sensitivity on the low light autofocusing side of things. And in terms of continuous shooting, it can shoot 8 frames per second with fixed autofocus, or 5 frames per second with continuous autofocus. It can also do silent shooting. At launch, silent shooting is going to be limited to single shot, but before the end of 2018, they're going to have a firmware update that comes out that will allow silent shooting to work for continuous shooting as well. It also does have eye detect AF, which is fantastic for portrait shooters. Anyone shooting people, you want to make sure that you got the focus right on their eye, especially if you're using a fast lens like the 50mm 1.2 or similar. So you do have that as well, which is great. In terms of video, the camera can shoot 4K at up to 30 frames per second. Via the HDMI port, you can output 10-bit 422 footage as well, and it does support Canon's log picture profile. So that's their low contrast, low saturation log picture profile, which is good if you're going to be shooting and then color grading in post and so on, so it does support that as well. Now, there is a crop in 4K. There's a 1.7 times crop in 4K. I know a lot of people are not going to be too happy with that. It's something that you're going to have to live with. But I will say that the dual pixel autofocus that I mentioned does work fantastically for video. Does a really good job at tracking subjects. It's really easy just to use this use continuous autofocus when you're shooting video and have it do a really good result. So that's definitely very nice. All in all, I'm quite impressed with this camera. I think it's a very strong offering. Obviously the smaller size and weight compared to their full-frame DSLRs is very nice. The build quality is excellent. The grip is nice. I don't think I mentioned that, but it feels very good in the hand. The ease of use is very good too. The addition of this new touch bar, the fully articulating touchscreen, the new control ring on the lens is nice. Just makes it very intuitive and quick to operate. The AF speed is fantastic. It's super, super fast. The new lenses are all quite impressive. They're very high quality and super sharp. Also, the fact that you can use the adapter to put your existing EF or EFS lenses on here is also very nice. Now, they are going to take some flack for the single card slot, the crop factor in 4K, and the lack of in-body image stabilization. But other than that, I think this is a very strong camera. I think it's going to be quite popular. Now, it is due out in early October for the body, the 24-105 lens, which is going to be the kit lens, and 2 of the 3 adapters, just not the one with the drop filter. The 50mm 1.2 should follow very soon in mid-October, and everything else in December or so. We don't quite have Australian pricing confirmed yet. We should have that in the next week or so, but you can place a pre-order now on our website at www.digidirect.com.au, or you can come in store and you can do it in person. We've got stores in the Sydney CBD, Bondi Junction, Miranda, the Brisbane and Melbourne CBD, and Cannington, Western Australia. Thanks, guys. Take care.